Today I'm out in the Arizona desert taking a look at the all-new 2022 Lexus NX. This is the second generation of Lexus's compact crossover, and this is the spiritual successor for the original Lexus RX. Back in 1998, when that model first launched, it was a compact vehicle, actually a little bit smaller dimensioned than this NX, but over the years it has grown to be more of a mid-size vehicle, tackling the BMW X5. The new NX is instantly recognizable as a Lexus, but it also debuts a slight twist to the Lexus design language. The spindle grille, which is what they refer to this shape as, is definitely less spindly than before. It has a really narrow section up here that wraps around the side, but the rest of it is very vertical, giving this a much squarer look than the previous model. All the lighting up front is full LED triple beam headlights, a signature accent strip there, LED turn signals, LED fog lights, and LED cornering lights at the bottom. At just over 183 inches long, the NX is about the same size as the first generation model, and again, pretty similar to the first generation Lexus RX. Direct competitors to this include the Acura RDX, obviously that's a very close competitor, the Infiniti QX50, the Volvo XC60, and the rest of the European competition like the Audi Q5, and of course the BMW X3. As with many luxury vehicles, they really tuck in the greenhouse up here to give this more of an accentuated hip look than we find in mainstream crossovers. That logically reduces cargo practically a little bit versus something like a RAV4 or CR-V, but it's right in line with most of the competition. In order to keep the dimensions neat and tidy, they definitely don't give us much of a bumper overhang down here at the bottom. These are full LED taillights, amber turn signals, and they've really continued with the design that we first saw in the refreshed Lexus IS, with a strong bar running right there across the back that's lit up. One big change for Lexus, however, no L back here on the rear, just Lexus spelled out in letters. Another big change, no exhaust tips down at the bottom, not even faux exhaust tips, although I guess this pattern right here sort of gives a little bit of an homage, perhaps, I guess, to an exhaust tip. Every model, hybrid, non-hybrid, turbocharged, etc., all the exhaust tips are tucked up under the bumper. Lexus now gives us 4 engine options in the NX. The base model is the NX 250 that uses a 2.5-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine, basically borrowed out of the Lexus ES. It'll give you 203 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. All versions use an 8-speed automatic transmission. All versions get 28 miles per gallon combined, and if you choose all-wheel drive, that's going to be the slowest NX, with the manufacturer quoted 0 to 60 time of 8.6 seconds. Most folks, however, will be buying this engine. It's a new 2.4-liter turbo. You'll find this in the NX 350. This gives you 275 horsepower and a whopping 317 pound-feet of torque. The 8-speed automatic transmission is standard, as is all-wheel drive. All of these models will get you 0 to 60 in a manufacturer-quoted 6.8 seconds and give you 25 miles per gallon combined. Then we have 2 different hybrid systems, the NX 350h and the NX 450h Plus. The more popular hybrid is going to be the NX 350h that gives you 239 horsepower out of a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder hybrid system. It's basically been borrowed out of the Toyota Highlander rather than the Toyota RAV4. That will get you 0 to 60 in 7.2 seconds and 39 miles per gallon, making this one of the most fuel-efficient vehicles that you can buy, whether we're talking about mainstream crossovers or luxury crossovers. This is going to be significantly more fuel efficient than something like a Volvo plug-in hybrid, an Audi plug-in hybrid, or the BMW plug-in hybrid. The most intriguing drivetrain is also going to be the most expensive and likely the hardest to find on dealer lots. It's going to be the new 450h Plus plug-in hybrid system that gives you 302 horsepower thanks to a 2.5-liter hybrid system mated to a bigger battery pack in the rear, 18.1 kilowatt hours. That's good for 37 miles of electric range and over 35 miles per gallon combined once the battery has been exhausted. That's going to be the fastest way you can get your Lexus NX to 60. 6 seconds is what they're quoting. If you want to know more about the plug-in hybrid, there is a separate video on that, so be sure and watch the rest of this video so you can see what the NX is like on the inside, what the cargo area is like, etc., and then check out the plug-in hybrid video. As before, there's a ton of active driver assistance tech on every Lexus NX. This debuts the new Lexus Safety System 3.0 that we're going to be seeing spreading across the brand. This includes all the active safety systems that we found previously, plus a few new ones. We have adaptive cruise control, autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian detection, lane centering, and auto high beams on every model. That's already more standard feature content than we find in the vast majority of the European competition. And now for 2022, we get a bunch of new systems. The most interesting of these systems, at least for me, is the inclusion of evasive steering assist to the autonomous emergency braking program. This will work in a wide variety of situations, the most important of which is when you're turning left across traffic. If it detects that oncoming traffic is going to interact with the vehicle, not only will it try and stop you, it's also going to try and steer out of the way of that particular collision. Pedestrian detection has been expanded to include right-hand turns and left-hand turns. There's also an emergency driver stop system, so if the driver is unresponsive, it will take the vehicle to a complete stop, and safe exit assist. So these door handles are now electronic. There's an electronic actuator in there, and it will not allow you to open the door if the blind spot monitoring system detects someone coming up in your blind spot. I found the driver's seat to be quite comfortable during my day with the NX. We have a multi-way adjustable driver's seat, 4-way adjustable lumbar, 3-position memory over there on the driver's door, and a powered tilt telescopic steering column. All the way, I'm a bit surprised that we don't have a power extending thigh cushion, something that we do see in other Lexus models. You should also know that the front passenger seat does not have the same range of motion as the driver's seat. It's lacking the 4-way lumbar. Jumping into the back, we find just over 77 inches of combined legroom, so this has a little bit more legroom than the X3, but it does have less legroom than some of the competition that's also front-wheel drive based. Still, there's a pretty decent amount of room back here. This front seat's comfortably adjusted for me at 6 feet tall. I have about 5 inches of legroom left. This is a compact crossover, so if you want more room than this, you can always get a Lexus RX. It's going to be wider across the back and give you more legroom. If you want a little bit more room in your back seat, there is the Lexus RX. It's not only going to give you more legroom, but it's also going to give you a wider back seat that's going to be a little bit more suitable for 3 adults or child seats and adults combined. There's also a teeny tiny third row back there available. Now, when it comes to headroom, things are pretty generous. Even in the model with this large panoramic moonroof and in the center seat, which is a little higher off the ground than the outboard seats, I still have a decent amount of room. This front seat is all the way back in its tracks. You can see I have about an inch of legroom left. Behind the power hatch, we find just under 23 cubic feet of cargo space. That puts this a little bit below some of the European competition. But rather interestingly, it doesn't matter which version of the NX you get. Regular, hybrid, plug-in hybrid, turbo, we get exactly the same kind of cargo capacity back here. Now, under the cargo area load floor, things do change a little bit. Instead of a spare tire, we find a large cargo well under the load floor, and this does change based on the model that you get. If you get the plug-in hybrid, then a 12-volt battery goes right here in this area, giving you a little bit less room, but we still have a large and practical cargo area there right under the load floor, and for some reason, this area is not included in that just about 23 cubic feet of storage space. So I think in reality, this cargo area is not far off where we see a lot of the European options. It's just that Lexus is not including what's under the floor. On the inside, there are a number of touches that aren't exactly new to Lexus, but we're definitely going to be seeing across the Lexus lineup, like this digital rear view mirror here, new controls for things like the large panoramic moonroof, separate control for the shade and for the opening of the moonroof. You can see that that panoramic moonroof extends to all the way over there towards the rear passengers' heads. The driver and front passenger have height adjustable shoulder belts and 2-way adjustable headrests. Today I'm inside the top-end luxury trim of the Turbo model. This has real leather upholstery. Most of the rest of the lineup has imitation leather, which Lexus calls New Lux. This is a 2-tone arrangement. The center section there is charcoal, the outer section is sort of an off-white, and that 2-tone theme expands out to the doors, where we find a light-colored armrest, and the rest of the materials are the same charcoal that we find in the middle of the seat. In this model, the front and rear seats are heated, but just the front seats are ventilated. Everybody gets perforations. You can see we have moderate bolstering going on the front seat cushion on the side. Not too much bolstering going there on the bottom cushion, so larger folks shouldn't have any problem at all with these seats. There's some storage cubbies going on right there on the front doors. The dashboard design is definitely a departure from what we saw in the last NX, which is styled sort of like the Lexus IS. The biggest change in here has to be this absolutely enormous infotainment system. Now, this screen is optional. The base version is going to get a 9.8-inch screen with basically the same software. This 14-inch screen is optional. Be sure and let me know what you think about the design of this screen down there in the comment section below. It definitely occupies an enormous portion of the dashboard real estate. This is running the latest version of Lexus's infotainment software. We're going to see the same basic software package in Lexus and Toyota vehicles coming up soon. You'll also see this basic same screen in the new Toyota Tundra. But each vehicle gets some unique touches and unique design elements with the system. If you want to know more about this software, be sure and check out my full video on it. You'll find that down there on the channel as well. CarPlay, you'll notice, uses just the top portion of this screen, leaving the bottom section of the screen for other system functions, like these knobs right here where we have the climate control, heated and ventilated seats. You can pop that up for additional climate controls right there. This menu brings up yet more climate control options. But one thing that you notice we don't have in this system is a home button, which I do find interesting. If you want to go home, we hit this Lexus button here, and now we're in the Lexus interface. Along this side, we have the options that are contextual, so CarPlay, connected navigation right there, audio, phone interface, vehicle settings, and then system settings. One really interesting touch with this system is that the navigation is connected and therefore will require a subscription. If you get this big screen, we get a 3-year subscription for navigation. If you get the 9.8-inch screen, you'll have to pay $16 a month if you want that factory navigation integration, and it will bring with it a few other features. Below that, we have 2 large air vents, a button for the 360-degree camera system that enables that right there, some physical buttons for the defogger, volume, that's a power volume knob right there, And then below that, we have the drive mode selector, Eco, Sport, and Normal. Those are the modes in this particular vehicle. G wireless charging mat, and that slides out of the way if you want to hide your phone away and have access to that extra storage cubby there. Some USB ports there, one for the system and one charge-only port. There are also some USB ports right there, but the system does support wireless charging and wireless CarPlay. We have an electronic shifter right there. It's a joystick style with park being that button there, 2 large cup holders. Behind the shifter, we have auto start, stop, enable, disable, a hill descent control button. This is sort of an all-weather traction button there, brake hold, and of course the stability control disable button. Between the front seats, we have a large padded center armrest. It opens to the side and gives us quite a bit of storage capacity. And in case you're wondering, it opens from the other side as well. Moving over to the driver's side, the bezel for that infotainment system makes its way over here to the instrument cluster, where we find a 7-inch partial LCD cluster. I have to say, this did surprise me. You cannot get a full 12-inch LCD cluster in here like you can find in some of the European options. We have digital gauges on each side for the engine temperature and fuel level, but those are LEDs. Everything else is the LCD right there in the middle. As you'd expect, the LCD theme changes based on the drive mode that we're in, whether we're in normal, eco, or sport. If you get the top trim, we also get a large full-color heads-up display. You'll see that the display is showing me what the touch controls on the steering wheel will do that I'll show you in a moment. I can flip through those options on each side, and then you use the control to actually interact with things, and it shows you what you've pressed there. In addition to that, we get turn-by-turn navigation directions and the typical heads-up display features. The steering wheel design is largely the same regardless of the model that you get. It's a round 3-spoke wheel, but if you get the model with the heads-up display, then the buttons change a little bit to these touch-sensitive buttons. Again, what exactly the button does is shown to you on the heads-up display, and you can change that with this button right down here. Then you use the heads-up display to actually see what's going on. You can press these little buttons lightly right here. It'll highlight it in the heads-up display, and then you can click for that particular option. There are paddle shifters down there on the back, and then on the right side, we have the same sort of touch-sensitive button with, again, selectable features. So, for instance, this button right now is adjusting the heads-up display up and down, and then it's cycling through heads-up display options. But with the press of this button again, then it turns into cruise control. So I hit this button right here to change the cruise control mode, this one for following distance, and then these options are programmable. The first thing Lexus did when designing the new NX was put it on a diet. This model weighs 170 pounds less than the previous generation turbo, even though the engine is larger and it's more powerful. That definitely improves performance. The hybrid model has an even more severe weight reduction of 210 pounds, and again, more power than before. But let's start out by talking about the base model, the NX 250. Now, full disclosure, I have not been able to drive the new NX 250. But according to Lexus, the all-wheel drive version should be the slowest version of the NX at 8.6 seconds 0 to 60. That's definitely slow for a luxury crossover in the US. If you get the front-wheel drive model, it's a little bit quicker at 8.2 because of the reduction of the weight. It doesn't have that all-wheel drive system that adds a few hundred pounds. The NX 350h is going to be 7.2 seconds 0 to 60. That's definitely an improvement over the previous model. This turbo model, according to Lexus, should go 0 to 60 in 6.8, and it definitely has a peppy feel out on the road. The old NX could feel a little bit lethargic. This definitely has a lot more low-end torque, and it's more willing to shift the transmission as well. But if you want the fastest version of the NX, that's going to be the 450h Plus. That will get you 0 to 60 nearly a second faster than this at 6 seconds even. It's logically a little bit slower than the similar system in the Toyota RAV4 Prime because of the added weight of the luxury features that we find in the NX. Curb weight ranges from 3,660 pounds in the lightest NX, which is going to be the base model, up to 4,475 pounds if you get that plug-in hybrid system. I have to admit, I'm a little bit surprised about Lexus's choice to just put 235 width tires on the NX, because you will certainly find wider and grippier tires on a variety of the competition. But even with the F-Sport version of the NX, Lexus is not targeting the same kind of performance shopper that they're targeting with the Lexus IS. I'm a little bit surprised by that because, of course, when the NX first launched way back when, Lexus was saying that they were tying the development of the style of the vehicle and its driving nature to the Lexus IS in the lineup, and the RX is a little bit more aligned with the Lexus ES. I noticed that in the presentation for this vehicle that I went through today, they didn't make that same kind of parallel. But honestly, I think that's fine, although this may give up a little bit of handling ability to some of the European options, or the Acura RDX with super handling all-wheel drive, it still has a very competent feel. From a complete stop, there's definitely a little bit of turbo lag with this 2.4-liter engine. Lexus isn't being too aggressive with the low-end tuning, but up at the high end, there's definitely a big meaty punch. So certainly a lot of passing power. The engine feels very very responsive once you get going, but from that 0 to 60 launch, it definitely is a little bit slower than some of the competition. When it comes to handling, Lexus has definitely dialed things in with the NX. This has a good solid feel to it, and the rear suspension especially does not become upset over broken pavement, something that you can find in some of the more stiffly sprung European competition. I think the Lexus has struck just the right balance with the suspension tuning here. Now, I should disclose that it is about 106 degrees outside, so obviously keep that in mind when it comes to 0 to 60 performance times or just any kind of performance feeling. When it gets this hot, performance is going to drop down. I'm also not testing this at sea level, where I do all of my usual testing. I haven't been able to braking test this vehicle, but I suspect it's going to be pretty similar to the outgoing model, pretty average for this segment. Although I haven't been able to make any cabin noise measurements, I suspect this is going to be one of the quieter options in its segment. This particular road surface is pretty rough. It's a very open, poor asphalt pavement, and on a road surface like this, it generates a lot of tire noise, and that is especially well controlled in the NX. Fuel economy is a little bit difficult to talk about because I haven't been able to spend enough time in this vehicle, but I suspect it's going to be pretty close to EPA estimates. One interesting twist with the drivetrains in the NX is that instead of borrowing the hybrid system from the RAV4, they actually borrowed it from the Highlander, and that's why it produces more power than the one in the RAV4. Now, one thing that surprised me with the NX is that we don't get any kind of torque vectoring ability on the rear axle, so I think that as far as driving fun and driving engagement goes, that the Acura RDX is going to be a little bit better than this NX Turbo, but it's not going to be that far off of the Infiniti or the Volvo. The Volvo does get a bit more power with a turbocharged and supercharged engine in that vehicle, and of course its plug-in hybrid system, but dynamically not that far off where we see the NX. If you want to get your hands on the new Lexus NX, this is going to be on sale right about the time that you're watching this video. And it's going to start a little bit less expensive than the bulk of the competition at $37,950 starting. That's of course before that pesky destination charge. That's going to get you the NX 250 in front-wheel drive form. If you want all-wheel drive, that's going to be at least $39,500. That undercuts the Acura RDX, which is logically the most direct competitor to the Lexus NX. It also undercuts the Infiniti QX50, which is $38,050, and of course the Volvo XC60 at $42,650. And remember, this has more standard active safety content than basically all of the competition. On the other hand, most of the competition is going to come standard with a turbocharged engine, some of the competition with a 300 horsepower turbocharged engine, and this is standard with a 203 horsepower naturally aspirated engine. If you want turbo power, that's going to set you back at least $41,550. Now that does include all-wheel drive. According to Lexus, the turbo engine is going to be the most popular engine option, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Even though it is higher than the base prices of some of the competition, remember all-wheel drive is standard, so once you account for that, it actually is a pretty decent deal compared against the RDX, the QX50, and that Volvo XC60. If you're interested in a hybrid version, and statistically at least 30% of you are, that will cost you a little bit less, $41,050, in order to trade horsepower for fuel economy. 239 horsepower instead of 275, but 39 miles per gallon instead of 25. Quite logically, the most expensive version of the NX is going to be the most powerful. That's the plug-in hybrid at $55,560, although it does qualify for a pretty decently sized federal tax credit. That price tag is a little bit higher than the base price of a lot of the European plug-in hybrid competition, but you get more standard equipment in the Lexus NX, especially more standard active safety equipment. You also get longer range and definitely better fuel economy. And then, of course, there's that legendary Lexus reliability. Whether we're talking about the naturally aspirated engine, the turbo engine, the hybrid, or the plug-in hybrid, this is likely going to be the most reliable luxury small crossover in America. Let me know what you think about all that down there in the comment section below, and what would you be buying if your money were on the line and you were looking to spend between $45,000 and $55,000 on your next luxury crossover? Is the Lexus NX in the running, or would you be looking somewhere else? Let me know, and of course, stay tuned because I will be getting my hands on this for a full week for a complete review just as soon as I possibly can. I'll see all of you later.